Hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and today I would like to discuss Simone Biles' decision to pull out of the Tokyo Olympics. Now, I'm not entirely sure of the details. I did a little bit of research, whatever, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what's going on. As of now, as of the time I'm recording this video, from what I can tell, she has pulled out of one event, the Olympic individual all-around competition, but she also doesn't know if she's going to ever compete in the Tokyo Olympics again. So this decision has been met with both a ton of support from her team as well as USA Gymnastics, who said in a statement, we wholeheartedly support Simone's decision and applaud her bravery in prioritizing her well-being. Her courage shows us yet again why she is a role model for so many. However, this decision has also been met by a ton of backlash from fans who have called her many things, from a selfish sociopath to childish and weak, a quitter, and even a shame to the country, which completely boggles my mind because I fully support her decision to not compete. As someone who can understand the pressure of being forced to compete in a very, very brutal sport, gymnastics, in my opinion, is actually a lot more dangerous than boxing at an amateur level. In boxing, you see a doctor before and after you compete, and if there's anything wrong with you at all, including something as simple as low blood pressure, they will not let you fight. I have never broken a bone, broken my nose, or anything really bad boxing. However, I have known gymnastics athletes who did this flip on a balance beam. She missed the landing, smacked her foot on the beam, and completely shattered her ankle. When you're doing twists and flips like that, if you land on your neck, it is game over. And so being pushed to compete in a sport that is very dangerous is not something that you want to do. And I kind of understand the feeling, obviously not to the extent that Simone Biles does, but back when I was in the tail end of my amateur boxing career, my father continued to push me to fight even though I didn't want to, and he was basically the only reason why I kept doing it for an entire year, basically. He would push me to take fights I didn't want to take, cut to weight classes that I really wasn't comfortable cutting to or felt good even in those weight classes. I was severely underweight and some of those fights. And he would push me to train incredibly hard for, like I said, fights I wasn't even interested in at the time. I remember it got to the point where he had scheduled a sparring session for me in a small town that was 2 hours away one trip, so 4 hours round trip, and I just wasn't enthusiastic about the 4-hour round trip just to go spar. And he got really, really mad at me, and he basically just said, actually, no, these were exact words, if you don't want to do it, pretend you do, because I worked really hard to schedule this sparring session for you, so if you don't like it, pretend. And so I understand the pressures and how difficult it can be to go, no, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, and how many people will attempt to pressure you into continuing to do it. Now, it's great that Simone Biles has support from her team and from the USA Gymnastics, but I can just imagine how difficult it must be getting that sort of backlash from the fans, although there are a ton of fans who support her decision, which I think is great. I think she should be applauded for this decision, actually, and it's for one main reason only. Well, not only, but one main reason. It's the fact that she decided to go out on her own terms. She has a ton of medals, and she was at the top, and she said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going out on top on my terms. How many athletes do that? Very few. Why? Because they get so much backlash from the fans. Oh, he's a quitter. He could have, or she or whoever, he could have gone more. He could have done more. This athlete could have been the greatest ever, but this athlete quit while they were on top, right? But if they don't do that, if they decide to keep going and keep pushing their bodies to the point where they start to lose performance, and it's like, oh, well, he's washed up now. He should have quit while he was ahead. He's old now. He's a washed up legend. No one cares about him. He's on the decline. Look at how people are talking about Conor McGregor. And so, what's the solution? What's the solution to this problem? If you can't quit while you're ahead and you can't slowly decline until you grow old, what's the solution? Die. That's literally it. I'm not joking. It's die. Either die or get so badly injured to the point where your body is destroyed and you physically cannot do it anymore. The reason why I say the solution to this problem is to either die or get seriously injured is because it allows the athlete to leave the sport not through their own volition while keeping their legacy intact. Like I said, if you have a great legacy and you're at the top and you're above everyone and you decide to stop, that can tarnish your reputation because you are seen as a quitter. Look at what people are calling Simone Biles, despite the fact that, again, she is known as the greatest gymnast in the world, incredibly decorated, and she really has nothing left to prove. People are still calling her a quitter, and that could be a stain on her legacy. However, it also allows them to keep that legacy intact, because if you continue to do it, and as you grow older and your performance starts to decline, people will remember your decline, and it can tarnish the reputation you have as the greatest of all time. So the only real way for an athlete to win, in a sense, and really go out and be remembered as the greatest with absolutely zero blemishes on their legacy is to die or have something happen to them that is completely out of their control that forces them to stop. So their legacy remains intact. They don't really have a decline, and yet they didn't choose to stop doing whatever sport that they're doing. It is rather unfair to the athletes, in my opinion. Case in point, at least from the sport that I know best, Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali. Two people who are wildly considered some of the greatest boxers of all time. Robinson is considered by many to be the pound for pound greatest of all time, even better than Ali. And Robinson died young, and Muhammad Ali obviously got Parkinson's. Another person I can use to illustrate my point is Roberto Duran, who famously quit halfway through his rematch with Sugar Ray Leonard, where he uttered the infamous phrase, "no más," or "no more" in Spanish. Now, this completely ruined Duran's reputation. Instead of going down in history as the great Hands of Stone, one of the four kings of boxing, and one of the greatest infighters to have ever lived, most people simply remember Duran as the man who said no mas. This is despite the fact that Duran was forced to take the rematch way sooner than he initially anticipated. Leonard's team really pushed to have the rematch incredibly soon after their initial fight, which forced Duran into a drastic weight cut that completely zapped him of his strength. He wasn't landing any punches during that fight. It wasn't even that he was getting beat up. It was more so that he just couldn't land and that Leonard was just kind of dancing around him. And finally, he just simply didn't care about the fight. So after a while, he just kind of went, I'm not landing punches. I'm tired. I don't care about this fight at all. I'm done. No more. No mas. But that completely tarnished his legacy. He was on the up and up. Especially after defeating Sugar Ray Leonard in their first match, his fame, his legacy, everything was just on the rise. But after that, it tanked hard. And even to this day, it is very hard for people to separate him from the famous no mas incident. And whether you think that is fair or not, I'll leave up to you. But I personally do not think it is very fair. Duran had an incredible run both before and after the no mas incident. However, it just goes to show how quitting can seriously affect the view of an athlete within the public eye. Most people would say that Duran should have been willing to die in that fight. However, if you don't even really want to do it or don't want to be there in the first place, how willing will you be to actually die for it? So, it's like people expect these athletes to push themselves to the absolute brink and only stop when forces outside of their control force them to, whether their bodies give out on them or they die. And even if their bodies give out on them, sometimes that's not even enough. Age is your body giving out on you, and yet if fighters keep going, and again, I'm talking mainly about boxing. That's my sport, so you'll hear fighters, but for me, fighters is kind of an interchangeable term for athletes. When athletes keep going to the point where even when their body starts to resist, it's not, oh, well, they're growing older. It's like, no, he's washed up. He's not that great. He should have quit while he was ahead. And so I think we should normalize, I think it should be a lot more accepted for people to go out on top, to look back at their legacy and go, yeah, like I've done great things. I'm hanging up my cape. It's time for me to relax. I've still got my mind. I've still got my health. for the most part anyway. Obviously, any sport takes a toll, but I've still got my mind, I've still got my health, and I have done great things. And you know what? It's time for me to enjoy myself while I still can, instead of pushing myself to the point where I no longer enjoy life. Muhammad Ali stepped into the ring when he had Parkinson's, and he got the crap beaten out of him. Larry Holmes. And people hate Larry Holmes for beating up Muhammad Ali when he chose to step into the ring with Parkinson's. So it's like, I think that not only because of the bravery it takes to stand up to all the expectations of you, but also just the bravery to go out on your own terms, Simone Biles should be praised. And that we should expect more, and we should encourage more athletes to go out on top before anything really seriously bad happens to them. And in talks of legacy, if we're talking about Simone Biles' legacy, not only does she have an amazing legacy inside the sport, it seems like she's going to be continuing her legacy outside the sport by being an advocate for women and anyone in general who has been assaulted and abused by the corrupt people in power at the Olympics and anywhere else. So it's not even like she's just quitting and then retreating to a life of seclusion and exclusivity, which would honestly, again, still be something valid. Listen, I had my time in the sun, I'm done. That is valid too, but she's also continuing to fight outside of the gymnastics thing. I don't know what it's called, the gymnastics mat, and I think I said the ring earlier. I really hope I didn't, but I probably did. But yeah, so it's not even like she's giving up on people. She is there at the gymnastics competitions to encourage her team and support them. And I think that everyone should encourage and support Simone for her bravery in not only defying expectations, but deciding that if she's going out on her own terms. Oh, and one more thing. When we talk about legacy, we don't know if Simone Biles is quitting for good or if she is just dropping out of the Tokyo Olympics. We don't know if Simone Biles will never compete in gymnastics again, or she is just taking a bit of a break until she kind of gets her head in the game. And maybe Simone Biles herself doesn't even know, because when I quit boxing, when I retired 3 years ago, I thought I would never box again. I thought I hated it. And yet here I am 3 years later, training harder than ever, hoping to become a professional, right? You never truly know, but so hell, maybe she will return to the gymnastics mat one day, maybe she won't. But even if she doesn't, I think it's important for people to support her in that decision. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think about the whole situation in the comments below. And until next time, I am not dead yet. And if you are not either, there is always a tomorrow waiting for you.